Childhood is magical. No responsibilities, no deadlines, just wide eyes, open hearts, and endless curiosity. You get to live freely, sometimes recklessly. You make mistakes, you learn from them, you laugh about them, you play, you adventure, explore, and discover. That's the beauty of growing up. The scraped knees, the sleepovers, the inside jokes that don't make sense to anyone but your friends. You find people in your neighborhood, at school, on the soccer field, or playground, and together you grow. But for one little boy in Georgia, that journey ended far too soon. Noah Bush. Noah Bush was just 8 years old when his life was taken by two other children. Two kids he trusted, two kids he called friends. He'll never get to go to prom, never learn to drive, never walk across a stage in a cap and gown. All those milestones so many of us take for granted, gone. Because when you're that young, the world still feels kind. You don't see the danger. You don't expect betrayal. You're full of hope, full of life. For Noah, it was just another playdate, another afternoon of fun, until it wasn't. Until it ended in murder. Are killers born, or does the world make them? The age-old debate, nature versus nurture. What shapes the mind of a child who takes a life? And how do we begin to understand a tragedy like this? One child is gone forever. Two others may never know a normal life. And an entire community is left grieving, shocked, shattered, searching for answers. Today we go behind the headlines and into the heartbreaking story of 8-year-old Noah Bush. Nestled in Wayne County, Jessup, Georgia, is the kind of small town where everyone knows your name, or at least your family. With the population just over 10,000, it's the kind of place where neighbors wave from their front porches and Friday night lights still bring the town together. Jessup blends that classic rural charm with deep-rooted Southern tradition. It's a place proud of its history, where heritage is celebrated, not forgotten. You'll still find one of Georgia's few remaining drive-in movie theaters lighting up the night sky. Local farms stretch across the land, and the nearby Altamaha River invites families to fish, paddle, and explore the quiet beauty of the outdoors. Once called the town that trains built, Jessup remains a railroad hub, where the sounds of locomotives are just part of the daily rhythm. As a town built on hard work, community, and connection, a slower pace of life that many seek out to raise families away from the chaos of the city. But like many small towns in the Deep South, Jessup carries a complicated past, one where echoes of old divisions still linger beneath the surface. And it's here, in this peaceful, tight-knit town, that Noah Kenneth Bush, a bright, joyful, young black boy, was growing up. Noah Bush was living a seemingly normal childhood in his quiet country hometown. By all accounts, he was your typical active 8-year-old boy. He loved basketball and football, and he was good at them, and Spider-Man was his favorite superhero. He played video games like most kids his age, and he brought that same energy and enthusiasm to everything he did. But beyond his talents on and off the court, what stood out most about Noah was his heart. He was full of love for his family, his friends, and even strangers. He gave the best hugs. He had a radiant, infectious smile that could light up a room. He was kind, he was smart, and he truly loved life. Noah was a second grader at James E. Bacon Elementary School, where he was well liked by both his classmates and his teachers. He was the kind of kid who made a lasting impression, bright, joyful, and full of promise. May 15th, 2024 felt like just another summer day in Jessup. School was winding down, the sun was out, and like many kids his age, Noah asked his mom, Demetrice Fuller, if he could go play with some neighborhood friends. She said yes, just a normal request on a normal day. So Noah ran off with two other boys, excited for an afternoon of adventure under the Georgia sun. Just kids being kids, laughing, playing, soaking up summer. Or so it seemed. But when Noah didn't come home that evening, his mother knew something was wrong. He wasn't the kind of kid to stay out after dark. She felt it deep in her gut, that unshakable instinct every mother knows. Something wasn't right. When a child goes missing, every second counts, and in Noah's case, authorities acted fast. He was last seen heading toward a restricted area near the Mill Creek Circle in Wayne County, a stretch of land dotted with pits and overgrown brush. The first deputy arrived on scene within 10 minutes of Noah being reported missing. In a town like Jessup, word spreads quickly, and soon, not just the local community, but surrounding areas were on high alert. An 8-year-old boy missing. That just didn't happen here. Not in a place where everybody knows each other. Deputies were joined by the Georgia State Patrol and the Glenn County Unit. They searched tirelessly through the night. Everyone knows how critical those first few hours are when a child disappears, the difference between finding them safe and not finding them at all. Then, just after midnight, investigators found something chilling: a small pair of children's shoes near a body of water. Noah's family confirmed what they feared most. Those shoes belonged to him. Nearby detectives also found barefoot footprints in the mud. Search crews pressed on, holding on to hope. Around 3 a.m., rescue teams entered the pond near where the shoes were found. When that yielded no results, they decided to drain the water, but equipment issues slowed the process. Undeterred, rescuers went back in manually. Just 15 minutes into the renewed search, around 8 a.m., they found Noah's body inside a water-filled clay pit, also called a borrow pit, which is a place where soil, gravel, and other materials are excavated and moved to another location, typically as part of a construction project. It was every parent's worst nightmare. Demetri's Fuller would never get to see her son grow up, never hear his laugh again, never watch him walk into adulthood. The life she nurtured, the child she loved with all of her heart, gone. No parent should ever have to experience that kind of heartbreak, especially not for a child so young. News of Noah's death spread quickly on social media, and almost just as quickly, so did rumors. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office urged the public not to jump to conclusions or spread misinformation that could harm the ongoing investigation. One rumor claimed another child had gone missing in the same area, a claim that turned out to be false. Another video, which circulated widely online, supposedly showed the location where Noah's body was found, but officials confirmed that wasn't true either. The sheriff's office made it clear false accusations and viral speculation weren't helping. If anything, they were becoming a hindrance to the investigation. At first, investigators ruled Noah's death an accidental drowning. They said there was no evidence of foul play. The story was that Noah took off his shoes and then wandered into one of the nearby borrow pits, essentially man-made ponds, and drowned. But Noah's parents didn't buy that story, not for a second. They knew their son. Noah was terrified of water. He was scared of drowning and went out of his way to avoid it. So the idea that he would have willingly walked into a body of water just didn't add up.
When they told me where he was actually found, it didn't make sense to me because my son has always had a fear of water.
Was a young man, 8 years old, who loved life but didn't like the water, was afraid of the water.
To his family, something clearly wasn't right, and what troubled them even more was how quickly authorities seemed to close the case. They felt the investigation lacked depth, urgency, and care. In their eyes, it looked like officials wanted a simple open and shut explanation, one that avoided asking the harder questions.
Why was there a rush to judgment that there was no foul play? Why wasn't there a comprehensive investigation? Why did her son have to be subjected to 2 autopsies? And the question still hasn't been answered at this point. Why is the sheriff not asking for and getting the resources that he needs? And why is this taking so long?
I immediately asked if they suspect any foul play, and the detective said no. I mean, right then he said no. And she, at that time, asked, could she see her baby? She asked 3 times. They would not allow her to see her baby.
They couldn't help but wonder, was it because Noah was a young black boy? Would the response have been different if the victim were white? Noah's family wasn't alone in those questions. The community began to stir. At first, it was just a few family members holding signs, lining the streets of Jessup, demanding answers. But soon, the quiet calls for justice grew louder.
I'm not getting any facts as to who they're talking to, who they're investigating, how my child was found, how he got. Nobody's telling me anything. There's video footage and different items that were found in the area days following that I was told were not out there on the day that they found it. I just want Noah to have the justice that he deserves. He didn't deserve for his life to be cut short. He had dreams, he had goals, he had ambitions, and he deserves to still be here. And since he can't, we just need him to get the justice that he deserves.
What started as a small peaceful protest turned into a movement, hundreds of people from Jessup and nearby towns chanting, marching, and standing together, united in grief, united in outrage. This wasn't just about one boy anymore. It was about a community demanding the truth about what happened to Noah Bush, a child of their own town, their neighbor, their son. For 55 days, the town of Jessup and surrounding communities stood together. They marched, they protested, they demanded answers. What really happened on that tragic day in May? And if it could happen to little Noah, what did that mean for their own children?
No mother should have to hire their own law firm. No mother should have to go and beat on neighbors' doors, walk the streets, stand on corners to receive what she has received today, which is just a partial accounting of what happened to her son. And if it happened to Miss Bush, it could happen to you. We expect more.
At first, it felt like their cries were falling on deaf ears. The frustration grew, the grief deepened, but then everything changed. On July 10th, nearly 2 months after Noah's death, the medical examiner's office made a stunning announcement. Noah's death was no longer being classified as an accident. The manner of death had been changed to homicide. The cause? Drowning. Noah's family had been right. The community had been right. This wasn't just a tragic accident. Someone was responsible. All eyes turned back to the two boys Noah had last been seen with, just 10 and 11 years old. Footage from a nearby Ring doorbell camera showed the two boys walking away from the area where Noah's body would later be found. But Noah wasn't with them.
It was Miss Bush and her family. They went out, they found videos. They have investigated this. Then as they began to feel as though they were hitting a brick wall of some sorts, they reached out to us. Then we became involved. The community has been investigating it. So this has been literally a groundswell call for justice. Believe black mothers. Believe black mothers. She knew in her heart of hearts that her son would not have just wandered off into a pool of water and drowned himself. She knew that in her heart. She never let that go. Her family, her mother, they have been here supporting her, believing with her and knowing, and today again affirms that she was right.
That raised even more questions. Why weren't these boys' families questioned the night Noah went missing? Why weren't their homes searched? These were the questions Noah's family and their attorneys were demanding answers to. From the beginning, they believed that the sheriff's office wouldn't say out loud, Noah didn't just wander off. He didn't drown by accident. Someone knew something, and it might have been the very kids he called friends. Then came the news everyone had been waiting for. It felt like justice was finally within reach for Noah, but even with an arrest, that didn't mean the community felt any safer. Later that July, a chilling confession changed everything. The 11-year-old boy, one of the two children Noah had been with that day, admitted to investigators that he had lured Noah into the water-filled clay pit and held his head underwater until he drowned. The 10-year-old admitted to helping conceal Noah's death. This 11-year-old admitted under oath that he, in fact, led Noah Bush down to the clay pits, pushing him into the water, and ultimately held his head under that water until he drowned. Noah's family attorney said. The charges followed swiftly. The 11-year-old was charged with simple battery, involuntary manslaughter, concealing the death of another, and criminal trespass. The 10-year-old boy was charged with concealing the death of another and criminal trespass. A judge set bond at $10,000 for the 11-year-old and $5,000 for the 10-year-old. Both were ordered to juvenile detention centers. According to Georgia law, minors under the age of 17 are typically tried through the juvenile court system, which emphasizes rehabilitation over punishment. Juvenile cases are also sealed. Names are withheld from the public to protect the identities of those involved. But Jessup is a small town and people talk. It didn't take long before word spread about who the boys were, both white and, in the eyes of many in the community, that fact couldn't be separated from the larger story. Then, on the very same day the boys were charged, the 11-year-old's mother, Natalie Hardison, was also arrested. She was charged with felony false statements to police, violating her probation, and truancy-related charges. But Wayne County Sheriff Chuck Mosley said those charges were not directly connected to Noah's death or related to her son. And for Noah's family, each new revelation only confirmed what they all felt all along. There was more to this case than anyone wanted to admit. Even though it seemed like Noah was finally getting justice, that the two boys he trusted, the boys he thought were his friends, would be held accountable, the relief was short-lived, because soon it became clear that many people, including Noah's family, felt the punishment didn't come close to fitting the crime. Both boys eventually pleaded guilty and were found responsible for Noah's death. They were sentenced just 2 years in confinement, the maximum sentence allowed under Georgia law for minors. But 2 years for intentionally taking the life of an 8-year-old? To Noah's family and many others in the community, it felt like a cruel joke, like a slap to the face. And it got worse. Just 7 months into a 2-year sentence, the 11-year-old boy who admitted to holding Noah Bush underwater was quietly released from the Department of Juvenile Justice. Noah's mother, Demetrice Fuller, learned of his release through a letter. Her son hadn't even been gone a full year. He hadn't even been buried a full year. The blood is on their hands, she said. My baby was 8 years old with a full life ahead of him. And 2 years is what the state of Georgia calls justice for a life that was stolen? Demetrice was heartbroken, stunned, and furious. Until my last breath, I will fight for justice for Noah. I was told they would be gone for at least 2 years. It's been less than 1, and his killer is already walking free, just living a normal life as if nothing ever happened. Noah's family suspects that the 10-year-old co-defendant may have been released as well, but the Department of Juvenile Justice won't confirm or deny it, citing juvenile confidentiality laws. According to DJJ, the boys were sentenced to a 2-year commitment. But what wasn't made clear is that this sentence can include both time in custody or time served under community supervision. That nuance was never fully explained to Noah's family. Even the Wayne County Sheriff's Office claimed they were caught off guard. One of their own deputies reportedly saw the 11-year-old out in the community. That's how they found out. Wayne County and the state of Georgia truly failed my family, Demetrice said. This is not justice. I believe more time should have been given, and I honestly believe that at least one of them will reoffend. And the Bush family weren't the only ones outraged. Across Jessup, parents began asking the same chilling question. What does justice look like when it comes to kids who kill? Because under Georgia law, the school system could technically allow these boys who admitted to causing Noah's death back into public schools, into classrooms, onto school buses, sitting next to other children. How is that safe? How is that right? If they're allowed back into the school system, what does that say to the rest of us? Noah's mom said. This was a murder. He'll be sitting at a desk next to someone's child, riding the bus like nothing happened, and we're supposed to just be okay with that? The outrage only deepened when allegations of racial motive began to emerge. Noah Bush was black. The 2 boys who caused his death are white. His family and their attorneys firmly believe this was more than a senseless tragedy. They believed it was rooted in hate. The 11-year-old boy even joined the frantic search for Noah, knowing the entire time that he was dead, lying beneath the water in that clay pit. This wasn't just about 2 kids, said the Bush family attorney. This was a consequence of adults teaching hate. Children absorb what they see, what they hear, what they're raised in. They see the flags, they hear the slurs, they see the Facebook posts, and then they act. So now the question becomes, if a child is capable of murder, what is the justice system doing to actually protect the next Noah? What message does it send when a young boy loses his life and his killers serve just 7 months? The injustice of Noah Bush's short-lived killer's sentence sparked something bigger than just heartbreak. It sparked a movement. In the wake of their unimaginable loss, Noah's family began advocating for what they're calling Noah's Law, a proposed change to Georgia's juvenile justice system, one that would bring tougher penalties for violent juvenile offenders and for the first time hold parents legally accountable as well. Because to this day, not a single parent of the boys who killed Noah has been criminally charged. Not for negligence, not for endangerment, not for anything.
Honestly, to me, I believe that they should have actually stayed incarcerated up until the age of 18 and possibly even 21. It was truly a slap in the face. He's not going to get to go to prom. He's not going to get to ever have a girlfriend. He's never going to have kids, get married, graduate, any of that stuff. So I feel like those privileges should be lost for those juveniles as well. Even though they were sentenced to 2 years, there's still a chance that they may only do a few months. You'll arrest a parent for truancy. They can go to jail for that, but not for murder.
Georgia law currently allows for a sentence of 1 to 10 years for a juvenile charged with involuntary manslaughter. But for Noah's family, the punishment in this case didn't even begin to reflect the crime. That's the heart of Noah's Law, to make sure no other family endures what the Bush family has. The law would not only increase penalties for juvenile offenders who commit violent crimes, but also place legal responsibilities on their parents. After public outrage boiled over at the possibility of Noah's killers returning to the same school district he once attended, it finally felt like a turning point was coming. In a rare moment of accountability, a judge ruled that the 11-year-old responsible for Noah's death would be banned from attending any Wayne County public school. He will remain under court supervision until he turns 21, and when he's able to work, he'll be required to pay restitution to Noah's family. For Demetrius, this ruling brought a small glimmer of justice. "This is very emotional. I was truthfully losing all faith in humanity," she said. "But the judge today, he gave me some of that back. The fact that he won't be in public school with other children, that means more to me than any amount of money, because no amount of money will ever bring my son back." The Bush family's attorney echoed that sentiment. This system failed Noah Bush. We all have to acknowledge that when an 8-year-old child's life is taken by a 10 and 11-year-old, that is a failure of society. Noah Bush was just 8 years old and never got the chance to grow up. His life was cut short before it even truly began. His death didn't just steal a child from his family, it robbed a community of his future, of everything he could have become, and it laid bare the deep cracks in a justice system that failed to protect him. "I'll never give up." That was Noah Kenneth Bush's favorite saying, a mantra full of energy, determination, and hope. And now, in his absence, it's his family who carries those words forward, fighting for justice, fighting for change, living by Noah's motto, "Without Noah." They've created a GoFundMe to help with ongoing legal battles, community advocacy, and efforts to pass Noah's Law. Because Noah Bush wasn't just a victim. He was a bright, joyful 8-year-old boy, full of promise, curiosity, and hope. What if this was your child? When children kill, there are no easy answers. But when race is involved, when a black child is killed by 2 white peers and the justice system responds with silence, leniency, or indifference, we have to ask harder questions. Questions about how race shapes not just who we protect, but who we punish. About who is given the benefit of the doubt and who is buried without it. This case forces us to re-examine how our society handles juvenile offenders. Should age excuse accountability? Or should the gravity of a violent act, of a life taken, carry more weight than the birth date of the one who committed it? If a child is old enough to hold another underwater and watch them die, are they not old enough to face the consequences? And what about their parents? What is their responsibility when a child under their roof learns to harm or to hate? Noah's Law is more than just legislation. It's a cry for change, for reform that doesn't just aim to rehabilitate, but to protect. For a justice system that doesn't just close cases, but confronts the truth behind them. Noah Bush deserved to grow up, to be more than a name and a headline. His story is not just about loss, it's a reminder that justice must be relentless, even when it's uncomfortable. So ask yourself, what does justice look like for a child like Noah? And more importantly, what will you do to make sure he is never forgotten? This has been Joshua John with Behind the Headlines, and until next time, stay safe.